When it comes to autism, everyone seems to be talking about autistic meltdowns. But what about autistic shutdowns? Let's go. Welcome. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. I'm orionkelly, that autistic guy. I'm all about providing validation and support for autistic people and their loved ones. Let's explore a crucial aspect of the autism experience: autistic shutdowns. So what are they and how do they differ from autistic meltdowns? So in general terms, an autistic shutdown is a period of disengagement or withdrawal from life. And like meltdowns, shutdowns can be triggered by various stresses. Things like sensory overload, social exhaustion, even overwhelming emotions. A quick and easy way to differentiate them in your own mind is a meltdown is obviously an outward expression, an outward manifestation, and clearly a shutdown is an inward manifestation. In other words, autistic meltdowns are where your emotions seem to overflow, bubble up to the surface, and I guess explode like a volcano. Some call them outbursts, or you could just say it's a burst of energy. Now, on the other hand, autistic shutdowns are clearly an internalized reaction, an internalized manifestation. So just like meltdowns, autistic shutdowns are the result of intense overload, overwhelm, stress. But unlike meltdowns, autistic shutdowns often go unnoticed by others. And this can be a big issue. Why? Well, just like meltdowns, autistic shutdowns are equally distressing. Yes, you heard me right. Experiencing an autistic shutdown can be equally distressing for the autistic person who's going through it. It might not seem remotely as distressing to experience it as another person, but it's very hard to differentiate the toll that a meltdown or a shutdown takes on an autistic person. If you think only meltdowns can impact our quality of life, you're wrong. All right, my friends, let's explore some practical examples of autistic shutdowns. In other words, what does an autistic shutdown actually look like in real life situations? We'll start off with avoiding eye contact. Is the autistic person in your life avoiding eye contact seemingly more than usual? Yes, autistic people aren't massive on eye contact, but I know the difference. I can just see it in my mind already. Me, my son, whatever. If we're shut down, if we're triggered, it's like the eye contact, almost the acknowledgement of the other person disappears completely. It hasn't, but it looks like it has. So the eye contact is gone. It's like we're there, but we don't even want to look anywhere near you. And you think that's about you because everything's about you, right? It's not. But this example I can relate to big time. Becoming non-speaking, selectively mute in stressful situations is another example of how autistic shutdown can look. I get this a lot. I've seen this with my son, and I know this with me. I can go into situations that can be socially stressful or stressful for one reason or another, and I literally shut down. It's an autistic shutdown. I can't talk. I just go selectively mute. No speaking. Now, I may eventually warm up to particular people, but that is my brain's response to that situation. Another example. Do you retreat to a quiet area? Do you escape noisy places? Do you find yourself getting the hell out of noisy events or gatherings? You might not leave completely. You might leave the room. You might go to a quiet space. You might go outside. You might wait in the car. This, again, a manifestation of an autistic shutdown based on that particular environment you were no longer able to stay in. Repetitive behaviors, stimming. So we're not saying anything, but we're doing a lot. This could be an autistic shutdown. In that moment, it's not a meltdown because it doesn't come across like an outward explosion or reaction. It's like we're quietly doing something, stimming or something repetitive to soothe ourselves. Tuning out of things. It could be classes at school, lectures in uni, meetings at work, conversations at home. Tuning out of these situations that seem to have an overload of information is another way of coping and is another example of an autistic shutdown. Losing interest or stopping doing your passions, your special interests that you love doing is another clear sign of autistic shutdown. So in other words, the manifestation is not being able to do or not wanting to do things that you usually enjoy doing. But what about this one? Experiencing a loss of appetite. Even a general disinterest in all foods during these periods of stress can be a manifestation of a shutdown. Fixating on a specific topic or interest as a form of escaping, right? I just want to dive into this because everything I should be doing has got me here. That's a shutdown, right? You have shut yourself down to the world at large. And you're just focusing on just fixating on this one thing. Now, feeling physically and emotionally exhausted after social interactions, sure, can lead to autistic burnout. But remember, to get to burnout, you would need repeated, I don't mean one or two, like repeated series of meltdowns and shutdowns. So this sense of feeling completely shot after social interactions is a shutdown. Experiencing heightened anxiety in unfamiliar environments also leads to autistic shutdown. Struggling to initiate, even maintain conversations with others can lead to autistic shutdown. Bottom line is, if you find it hard to start or keep conversations going, you're going to withdraw. But for those who have an autistic partner, an autistic loved one, this is a clear sign of autistic shutdown. Okay. From the get-go, I understand autistic people may not be so touchy-feely, but I know some who very much are. Everyone's different. The point is, if the autistic person in your life is avoiding, is pulling away from any type of physical touch, physical contact with others, that's a clear sign of dysregulation and autistic shutdown. Now, for my social autistic butterflies, social, I mean social media, the best form of social where you don't actually have to see and talk to people. Are you withdrawing? Are you pulling away? Are you just taking yourself off the social media platforms you usually live on? Right, okay. That absolutely could be a manifestation of experiencing autistic shutdown. Giving the autistic person in your life verbal instructions can be hard at the best of times because we're trying to connect a disconnected communication method. Okay, but in doing so, have you ever noticed they've tried, they've listened, and then they've just glazed over? In fact, they're not disinterested or disrespectful. These instructions are not working. We are not getting them. And as we struggle to process these verbal instructions, we are going to move into an autistic shutdown. But this one, for parents, carers, partners of autistic people. Let's talk about emotions real quick. Okay. Yes, I know autistic people can have trouble processing and expressing emotions. A thing called alexithymia tells you all about that. I've done videos on it. In effect, we do experience emotions. Trust me, we feel them, we experience them. Our issue is identifying what we are feeling and experiencing, and then being able to convey that in a neurotypical way. Again, it's this disconnect. Now, that's a given. However, if you feel like the autistic person in your life is having even more trouble, even more of a challenge, processing and conveying emotions to you, they may well be experiencing autistic shutdown. A really great, in my opinion, practical example of what autistic shutdown feels like is you've gone from, feeling like you don't really belong to feeling a complete sense of detachment between you and the world and everyone else. To me, that's a real sense of autistic shutdown. I'm talking a complete disconnect. You are completely disconnected and detached from everything else and every other person around you. It's a horrible place to be. But this practical example of autistic shutdown is all about decision making. When autistic people are faced with decisions, whether it's demands or questions, it's always going to be a struggle. I've got videos on demand avoidance and different ways of communicating, but with regards to shutdowns, simply being unable to make decisions, process information, can be another clear sign of autistic shutdown. Let's explore some common triggers that can cause autistic shutdowns. Sensory overload, things like loud noises, bright lights, strong smells. I hate strong smells. What is that smell? Even crowded environments. Sensory overload can trigger autistic shutdowns. Another important trigger is social exhaustion. Now, as you know, autistic people, as core diagnostic traits, can have challenges with social communication and interaction, or more specifically, just any kind of communication and interaction with neurotypical people. We've come from a different planet, speaking a different language, and now we're trying to work the whole I speak two languages vibe. The bottom line is extended periods of social interaction, of navigating complex neurotypical social situations can trigger autistic shutdown. Do not discount the level of energy that can be drained from an autistic person through simply going through extended periods of social stuff. Another trigger for autistic shutdowns is changes in routine. Now you're going to think, yeah, that causes meltdowns for the autistic person in my life. They're the ones you see. Bottom line is unexpected changes to your daily routine, or even just, in your words, mere disruptions to daily routines can absolutely trigger autistic shutdowns. The sheer distress you can place on the autistic person in your life by pushing them through or forcing them into unexpected changes or disruptions to their familiar routine on a daily basis is frankly far more devastating than you could ever imagine. Emotional stress is another trigger. So we're talking intense emotions. Things like anxiety, frustration, sadness, could be anger. At a certain point, these extreme emotions will overwhelm us and push us into an autistic shutdown. So we shut down to cope. Not that that's really the best way of describing it. What do? We shut down to really reboot, re-regulate, so we can then try to cope. Yeah, people don't realize this. They think, oh, unless they have this big outward meltdown, it's okay. It's A-okay. No. If they've become vacant, distant, shut down, just completely stopped, trust me, that is a massive red flag. That is a warning sign. Let's talk about cognitive overload as another trigger for autistic shutdowns. For autistic people, processing information can be a real challenge. Of course, we're all different, but I myself, just speaking on my own behalf, I struggle to process things in an appropriate neurotypical time. So for example, if you're going to ask me questions and expect me to get right back to you, you're going to be badly disappointed. The fact is, people that know me know, give some extra time. So don't ask the question repeatedly. It's coming. The answer's coming. Just hold. Sometimes I find it funnier just to say to someone, hold please. Try it. Try it on your friends. Next time they ask you a question, hold please. The bottom line is processing information virtually constantly, large amounts of information, even facing complex tasks that require information processing the ways of doing things, 1 billion% lead to autistic shutdowns. You see, in processing large chunks of information, it can put us into a cognitive overwhelm. And frankly, I think autistic people, whether it's at school or work or home, I think this type of overload, so a cognitive overload, in my opinion, can lead to more shutdowns and meltdowns, whereas other triggers may well lead to more meltdowns than shutdowns, seemingly. But in this respect, have you ever noticed potentially you have a child who's autistic at school, and if they're not getting something, they're just moving on? You can't do this like the other kids in your class. Do you know that? Do you care? Of course they do. Why haven't you been kicking and screaming? They just shut down. It's like a computer that has got to the point where it no longer can process, and it literally just crashes and shuts down on you. We can't live in a world where we assume every person is the exact same computer with the exact same specs. That's bloody stupid. Of course, that's the entire education system. Seriously. Sensory sensitivities, another trigger. Now, of course, we talked about sensory overload, but see, the difference between overload, which is too much of something, is a trigger by a particular sensory overwhelm that's connected to you. So it could be textures. The autistic person in your life might not like the feeling of particular materials or tags, or they might not like to wear pants, but like to wear shorts or skirts, things that provide, I don't know, more space. I don't know. What autistic person doesn't want more space? The bottom line is sensory sensitivities that are individual to the autistic person in your life, taste, touch, smell, whatever it is, will absolutely lead to autistic shutdown. Communication challenges, another trigger for autistic shutdown. Things like having a hard time expressing yourself, or for autistic people, the quite common experience of not really understanding exactly what's being conveyed or communicated to them from others. This imbalance, this disconnect. The sheer frustration of that can push you into an autistic shutdown. Unpredictable environments, another trigger. Environments that are uncontrollable or unpredictable, this is a no-no for autistic people. Of course, we have to live life, but it's important to know going into environments that are either unfamiliar, unpredictable, can change with the sight, the smell, the sounds, these types of things, or uncontrollable completely. You can't turn the sound down or the lights down, or you can't do the kind of things to help you. They can lead to shutdowns. Keep in mind, by the way, that particular example, okay, that would lead to like a heightened sense of anxiety. But we have to keep in mind, what's the point of the shutdown? To regain a sense of control, to find a way back to regulation. It's that simple. Emotional triggers, they're big with autistic shutdowns. How about autistic people experiencing rejection? Yeah, that seems to go really well. Conflict, again, I'm really good at that. Criticism, bring it on. Don't you ever criticize me, ever. Ever. These types of emotional triggers evoke strong responses, which can push us into shutdown. But how about this one? Just being tired, fatigued, overwhelmed can trigger autistic shutdown. I mean, I think it's fair to say most people who are fatigued will experience a lower level of resilience and therefore an increased level of dysregulation. Hypersensitivity, which is different to your own individual sensory triggers. Hypersensitivity can also be a big one. Autistic people who experience what you would class as a disproportionate response to certain sensory stimuli. Okay, so this could be a hypersensitivity to sound, to light. Things that, what do you mean? It's not even bright. Loud? It's not. What noise? What noise is loud? What's the point of questioning that? This hypersensitivity, which some autistic people experience, triggers autistic shutdown. There is no other way, by the way. You've got to shut your whole person down, right? Just try to block the world out. What else are you supposed to do in this situation? Pure protection. When I say emotional overload, people think bad stuff. No. I'm saying emotional overload of any kind. It could be a tsunami, a flood of positive, of good emotions that can also lead to autistic shutdowns. It's simply the ability to process any type of sheer emotional flooding to your brain that can put you in a shutdown. But this one is very relatable to me as an autistic adult who's also a dad of an autistic kid. Parenting stuff, life stuff, executive functioning stuff can trigger autistic shutdowns. Remember, and I say this every time so it sinks in, executive function, so like planning, time management, tasks, this is a set of cognitive skills. You're not born with this. People go, oh, I'm great at this. Okay, cool, you've got good at this. It's a set of cognitive skills, which means it has to be learnt, developed, honed over time. Autism is a neurodevelopmental disability condition. Therefore, in developing this particular set of cognitive skills, we're going to have greater barriers and challenges. So of course, it's going to be harder. The sheer fact of living life and trying to keep it on track is absolutely a trigger for autistic shutdowns. In fact, more than meltdowns. It's like, you know what, I can't manage all this, I can't do all this, I'm just going to stop. I'm just not going to do any of it. I'm just going to sit on the couch, eat food I shouldn't eat, and watch TV I shouldn't watch. As a dad of an autistic kid, bullying plays a big role in the life of a young autistic person. So social rejection, bullying, yes, I agree, can lead to meltdowns more so for some, but it also leads to shutdowns. The sheer act of being rejected socially, being bullied, being ostracized by your peers can definitely put you down the path of just, rather than fighting back, of just turning off, shutting down, numbing yourself to the world around you. Changes to your day-to-day environment could be your safe place, your workplace, your school, these things that you rely on to be the same. They can be genuine triggers for autistic shutdown. There's nothing worse for autistic people than things being moved or changed or altered or freshened up. Another trigger for autistic shutdowns is something you'll definitely relate to as an autistic person, and that's poor sleep or sleep disturbances. This, in my opinion, virtually goes hand in hand with being autistic. Now, putting that aside, clearly, poor sleep or sleep disturbances are going to put you into a state of autistic shutdown. Again, a state of trying to cope, of trying to numb yourself to the things around you that you do not have the capacity to regulate through because you're not rested. For autistic people, and I want to be clear, I don't care if you're 1 or 90, if you're autistic and you don't get enough sleep, you are going to experience everything as an autistic person to a greater extent. It will exacerbate your sensory sensitivities. It will decrease your ability to stay regulated or regulate yourself. Anything that triggers you as an autistic person in the world around you will become exponentially harder if you don't get enough sleep. But as an ex-uni student who didn't actually finish, I can tell you performance pressures, whether it's at school, uni, work, life, home, can lead to autistic shutdowns. So if you are under pressure by outward sources, you must complete this task, this project, this job, this thing, and there's pressure and deadlines and performance pressure as well. Sometimes I'll just go, I'm just not going to do it. I quit. I'm not going to do it. Now, of course, that's a shutdown, and that's my way of giving myself time. And I do go back and finish it, but sometimes I think that helps me. But others think, what are you talking about? You can't just not do it. It's got to be done. You've got to do it. But understanding that's an autistic shutdown triggered by those pressures can be really helpful in navigating them through that period so we can become regulated and empowered to try again. Trauma. Yep. Traumatic experiences can trigger autistic shutdowns. So past traumatic experiences, as autistic people, this can be many things. It could be some type of abuse, significant life events. You may have lost someone dear to you. Regardless of what these traumatic experiences are, they can heighten your anxiety and trigger autistic shutdowns. It's not like you just walk away from past traumatic events, guys. Things will trigger memories of those. You will experience them in your mind, in your head, in your body over time. It will constantly be placing you into more and more bouts of shutdown. You might not even realize it. And again, this is a way of an autistic brain coping with reliving these past traumatic events. To learn more about meltdowns and burnout, check out my playlist, Autism and Dysregulation.